Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video we're going to talk a little bit about creating shadow colours using the colours that are found opposite on the colour wheel. So for this example I'm going to use a sunflower, which is of course nice and bright yellow. An opposite yellow on the colour wheel is violet or purple, so we're going to use that to make the shadow colours. So I'm going to do a really simple drawing because we're really just talking about the colour, so the drawing itself will be nice and quick and simple. So to begin with I'm going to do some pencil lines. This is a Bockingford block that I'm working on, and we'll just do some pencil guidelines. Firstly for the centre of the flower, and it's at a slight angle, so a slight ellipse rather than a facing your circle, and the same for the petals in a much larger area. So stand up and get all your arm moving, and then you can get some nice big ellipses to fit your flower shapes into. And actually there's another centre here where we've got the seeds in the centre of the sunflower, and then the stem is coming down here and a nice big leaf off to the side. So with those we can talk about the greens that we would use as well. And then we'll just fit the petals into this. And you can take a bit of time with this, and I will come back to you once I've done all of those and I've gone over it with pen. So the pen that I'm going to use is a Unipin fine liner, and in this instance I'm going to use the sepia one rather than the black. It kind of lends itself a bit to this sunflower with all the brown seeds in the middle. Once you've finished your ink drawing, you can get rid of those pencil lines with a nice soft clean rubber. And I should have said, with daisy flowers, so when I refer to daisy flowers we're talking about flowers that are round with the petals coming from the centre. It's very easy to do imaginary ones from the head, but just be careful when you're doing an imaginary flower that you make it a bit more interesting by having some petals going this way and others that way. It's a natural living thing, and the petals aren't going to be all absolutely perfect, so just get a little bit of movement in there by moving some of the petals around a little bit, and by not having it facing flat on. If you do these ellipses and get it a little bit angled to one side, it makes a much more interesting picture. Okay, so now we've got rid of these pencil lines, we can go ahead and look at the colours. For the first step I'm going to put cadmium yellow over the whole thing, including the stem and the leaves and the centre, and then leave it to completely dry. So for this you need a good brush with a nice tip on it so that you can get to the tips of these petals, and take your time, make it nice and neat, filling in the whole thing. That's going to dry quite quickly in here today because it's a nice sunny day and it's quite warm in here, but I'll just pop that to one side to make sure it's completely dry, and we'll make up some more colour. So as I said, we've got cadmium in there. Now to make the shadow colour we want the cadmium again, so the same colour as the petals, and then on the opposite side of the colour wheel to that is violet. So just get a little touch of violet and and put that in there. And this depends how dark you want to go, how much contrast you want. You probably don't want to overdo it. That's probably enough for this little delicate flower that we're doing here. Now in the centre we want to make it a bit more interesting, so again we'll put some more cadmium in, and I'll add some cadmium orange to that as well to make that a different colour to the petals. And then we need some green, and I'm just going to use this sap green straight out of the pan there for the leaf. So I'm not going to go into too much detail with this. As I said, it was just to really talk about the colours and getting the shadows, so it was just an exercise for thinking about what's on the opposite side of the colour wheel and how you can create those shadow colours. But to begin with, I'm going to pop a bit of colour in that centre so that it's different to the petals. And I'm just going to let those colours touch and mix in together, so I'll put a bit more of the yellow in and a touch of green, because if it's a nice new fresh flower there's quite often green in the centre there, and just use your brush to tease those colours together and let them merge together a little bit on the paper there. So we're working wet on dry, but then we're allowing those to merge into each other wet on wet. And a little bit more green in the centre. And then we can move to another area whilst that's drying. So with the green, we'll do the stem. And we'll come back and put a shadow on here when that's dry, and the leaf as well. And having that little bit of yellow underneath there just really livens that up, makes it a really fresh summer green with that yellow underneath. I don't often use greens straight from the pan, I usually mix my own, but if you are using them straight from the pan, it's quite a nice way to work is to either put a little bit of extra yellow in, or green, or blue, to make it either darker or lighter. So they're layering it up with that yellow underneath, you get quite a nice colour. Okay, and we'll leave that area to dry. Rinse your brush. I'm going to get some more cadmium out of the pan into that first colour there that we used, and brighten up some of these petals. Don't be afraid to move your page around if it makes it easier with your arm. So I've decided this is too pale, so I'm going to go over them all. So I'll come back to you in a moment once I've done that. So now I've made the yellow a little bit stronger with that extra layer of cadmium. You can see, although it's nice and bright and it's definitely a sunflower, it's still a little bit flat. Despite the fact that we've made some curls in those petals, we still need some shadows in there to kind of bring it to life a little bit. So as I said before, we've got the yellow cadmium mixed with a violet, and in this case it was a Windsor violet, because those lie opposite each other on the colour wheel, and it's a great way to make a shadow colour. So have a think about where the petals will be casting shadow on each other and on themselves if they're slightly twisted. So obviously areas like this, where it's kind of behind, you're going to get a shadow. Maybe it's a bit curled and it's casting a shadow on itself. Now I'm going to leave these lines as they are, just flicking it up with the brush like that. If you wanted to make these softer, of course you could get a damp brush and just touch the edge. You don't have to do every petal, there might not be shadows on every petal. And think about where the sun's coming from. You put a bit of a shadow over this side and leave this side as if that's being lit up. So we'll have more shadow on these top petals than we perhaps will on the bottom ones. And if you want to get a photograph to work from that, you could go on somewhere like Pixabay and then really examine where the shadows are, where the darkest areas are. I'm just doing this from imagination just to give us an idea of there being a bit of movement in those petals. And these ones, there are some that are behind that are going to be completely in shadow from the other petals. Don't forget the petals are slightly translucent as well, the light will shine through them. And this is something you could build up and up if you wanted to. You could do several layers of yellow and you could do several layers of shadow colour, adding more detail each time. But I'm just keeping it simple just to talk to you about those colours. I'm running out a little bit here, so I will have to make some more. I'm not going to go all the way around, just in one or two areas. Like here, maybe it's bent over on itself. And if you've made any mistakes, like here it's run a little bit, you could cover that up with a shadow. And that's the good thing about working from the imagination as well. I'm just going to go over some of this area, make it much darker on that side. And you can follow some of these shapes around as well with your brush to emphasise the way those petals are going. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for now. We could come on and put much more on and, like I say, build it up and build it up, but I was just wanted to tell you about the colours. Now with the leaf, obviously the opposite on the colour wheel to green is red. So I'm just going to go back to my paints here and get some red. So I'll use an alizarin, I think. Just a touch and pop it in with that green there. And can you see that makes a really natural looking green, but it also makes a good shadow. So the sun's on here, not on here. It's going to be casting a bit of a shadow down one side of the stem. And with the leaf, this is the back of the leaf. So that by putting that into shadow, that kind of emphasises that we've got the back of the leaf there. A little bit of shadow on the stem there, and you could use that colour to make some extra lines if you wanted to as well. And that's all just going to bring it to life. In the centre, I think we could probably do with a little bit more of that orange to perk it up. And again, some of that green shadow, just to emphasise that shape of the sphere there. And we could go on and on, like I said, building it up and building it up. You could let that dry and then put another layer on and another and another. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. So really all you have to remember for your shadow colours is to put a tiny touch of the colour from the opposite side of the colour wheel to the colour that you need a shadow to go with. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back again with you soon. Bye bye for now.